can stay.
I don't really want to.
Here it is. I'll just sit down. You just read that and
You can use it.
rock and roll. Maybe some of you don't know that Tom, Mary's younger brother, had Down syndrome. And one of the things she said at the funeral is he probably won more medals than Michael Phelps at Special Olympics. So we had a celebrity with us all these years and really didn't know it. What I remember of Tom is at the sermon time at some point he would nod off to sleep, and often he would get poked awake again and so on. And so I'm glad I could fulfill that for him, give him a little nap every Sunday. And if some of you need that, that's fine. I'm glad to accommodate. But anyway, one time I wasn't here, and I made a video, and the video was shown here. I was large and in charge on the video screen, and apparently he watched the whole thing. So maybe we should have a video on here instead. Anyway, we're in a series in Genesis. If you're new with us, we're following this book. You can take one if you're new here. We're following this. There's stuff to read all during the week. So this past week, we've been reading from Genesis chapter 42. So we have 43, 45, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49. 7 more, and we're done. It's amazing. All right, Genesis 42. When Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you just keep looking at each other? I've heard there's grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us, so that we may live and not die, you idiots." Is that the impression that you're getting here? Who does this sound like, by the way? Archie Bunker. It sounds like a lot of fathers, doesn't it? Or mothers, or maybe your boss. What I want to do, I want to give just a little perspective. I want to give the father's point of view, the mother's point of view, the boss's point of view, and then I want to give the kid's point of view and the worker bee's point of view. I think each one has a unique perspective on this. From a father's point of view, you go to work, you work hard at whatever it is you do. They pay you some money, but that money goes right away to pay for the mortgage. It pays for the food in the house, pays for the heat, the electricity. It pays for the room that the kids enjoy, all the stuff in the room. It pays for their clothes. It pays for their education, pays for their vacations, pays for everything. It's generally the mom and the dad who have to fix everything. If something breaks, it's their problem. They got to fix it or hire someone to fix it. No matter what goes on in the household, it's their thing. And the kids just basically, go to school, have sports, enjoy themselves. And the one thing that the parents ask them to do is just clean up their room. That's it. Just clean up your room, and it's your stuff anyway. And the kids can't even do that. So the parent is like, I do all this stuff. Every day I have to go to work for you. I have to do all these things. And the one thing that I ask you to do, you can't even do that one little thing. I think kids, if you want to shock your parents, they may have a heart attack. If you would just clean the garage, if you just went into the garage, took care of the garage, cleaned it, they would come home, they'd open the garage door, they would see that it's clean, and they would just have a heart attack right there. And they would be so appreciative. Because as a parent, you feel like you have to do everything. Or many of you are the boss at some place or the foreman of some place. You have people that work with you or under you, and it's like no one can do anything. If you're not there for 3 days, nothing gets done. And every single problem comes back to you. No one can fix anything. No one has a mind of their own. And so once in a while, it would just be nice if someone would just take care of the problem, come up to you and say, "This problem happened, and we took care of it, and it's all done." And you don't have to worry about it or even think about it. That's what most bosses are looking for. Okay, that's the boss's point of view. So here Jacob is coming to his kids. So kids, we have no food. Canaan, no food. Egypt, food. Canaan, food. No food. Egypt, food. What do you think we should do? Naphtali, what do you think we should do? Judah, what do you think we should do? Issachar, what do you think we should? I love these names. What do you think we should do? And then one of them very timidly raises up his hands. Go down to Egypt? Oh, ding, 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 yeah. Hello, yeah. That would maybe be a good idea. So that's the impression. A lot of condescension coming down. Okay, so that leads to the other person's point of view. The reason why the kids don't clean up the garage, you know why? Because when you come home as a parent, you'd walk into the garage and you'd be, first of all, shocked that the garage was clean, but then you'd notice that the hammer is here when it should be over here. And so you'd say to your kids, why would you put the hammer here? I don't know, Dad. I don't know where to put the hammer. It goes here. Obviously it goes here. Where else would you put a hammer? Right? So as a parent or as a boss, you have this idea that there's one way that it ought to be done. And if it's not done that way, it's not right. There's not two ways. There's not three ways. There's only one way, and you're going to mess it up. So the reason why kids don't step up, or the reason why people at your work don't step up, is because you're a perfectionist, you want it done a certain way, you're going to micromanage the whole thing, and people are just like, you know what, why don't we just wait for him to come and tell us where the hammer goes? Let's not even bother. So if you're tired of no one doing anything, guess what? It's your fault. You have to let go. There might be another way. All right, continuing on. Then 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt. Okay, Dad says we should go down to Egypt. Let's go. The 10 Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt, but Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, from the same mother with the others, because he was afraid that he might get harmed, the harm that might come to him. So again, he's micromanaging the life, protecting, overprotective, and we'll come back to this issue of a favorite in Benjamin. Verse 5. So Israel's sons were among those who went to buy grain, for there was famine in the land of Canaan also. So there's famine in Egypt, famine in Canaan, and God is using a worldwide disaster to bring about his plan. Okay, now the scene sort of shifts. Okay, that's scene number 1 in our little drama. Now scene number 2. Now Joseph was the governor of the land, the person who sold grain to all its people. Okay, the contrast between the brothers and Joseph. Okay, the brothers, they're standing around, a major crisis in the family, and they're looking at one another. I don't know, what do you want to do? I don't know, what do you want to do? I don't know what we should do. Let's just wait and see what Dad has to say. So they're very timid. They're not taking the bull by the horns. And now the contrast, brother Joseph, raised in the same family. What's he doing? He's the second highest ruler in all of Egypt. He's in charge of the whole thing, the worldwide crisis, and he is in charge of it. Now, they're sons of the same exact father. So what happened? What happened is Joseph was apart from his controlling father. I mean, I'm trying to look at the case study of this family and try to figure out what's going on. You got 10 brothers, and all 10 of them have no idea what to do faced with a problem. We're just going to wait for Dad to solve it. Joseph was nothing, he had the coat, he had a couple of dreams. He told his dreams to his brothers, probably shouldn't have. Probably should have figured out telling your brothers a dream that one day they're going to bow down to you is probably not a good idea. But he doesn't lead anything. He doesn't do anything. And then he gets sold. He becomes a slave. And he's on his own. And when he's on his own, what does he do? The first opportunity, he ends up leading in charge of and managing a household, one of the major leading households in Egypt. Then he gets thrown into prison. And what does he do? He ends up becoming the manager of the prison house. And then what happens? He gets out of prison. He becomes the number 2 guy in all of Egypt. He gets out from under that controlling influence, and all of a sudden he becomes a leader. We'll come back to these themes. Now Joseph was governor of the land, the person who sold grain to all its people. So when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. Remember the dream he told them when he was 17 years old. He had a dream and he told his brothers, the sun and the moon and the stars, they're all bowing down to me. And now it's happening. As soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them. But he pretended to be a stranger, and he spoke harshly to them. "Where do you come from?" he asked. I don't know if you've ever been in trouble or there's been an authority, in your life. I don't, most policemen, when they stop you, they're very kind. They come up with their little pad. So I just need your name, you know, and because they're going to just stick you with a $50 thing, they don't really have to yell at you. But have you ever been yelled at by a policeman? Just, did you deserve it? Yeah, probably. I remember the only time I got yelled at by a policeman it was several years ago. Our kids were little, and someone in my church had free sand they were getting rid of, and I had a sandbox with no sand, so we went to get it at midnight is when he got out of work. So we took his trailer and my minivan, and we went there, and we loaded put the sand in this little trailer thing, and apparently sand is heavy. We just kept loading it on, and then as we're driving away, we crossed the Alex Fraser Bridge, which goes across the Fraser River, separating Surrey and Vancouver, and this is like the Mississippi River. This is a suspension bridge. It's huge. It's an incredible thing. So at 12:30 at night, we're going across this bridge, and all of a sudden, one of the wheels just snaps off, and I see it bounding down the bridge, just boom, 100, 200 yards, just boo, doo, doo. And, of course, sparks are flying, and I come to a halt in the middle of the bridge. And so we get out, and it's like we had no idea what to do. So we started shoveling the sand over the side of the bridge. I don't know why we were doing that. I thought maybe we could move it. I don't know why we were doing that, but it's 12:30 at night, and we're shoveling sand over the bridge. The bridge it's like 200 feet down to the water. This is a big bridge, and a policeman stops. And what the blankety you guys think you're doing? And anyway, so I got yelled at. That was one time. The other time I got yelled at was when my son lost his passport in Japan, and we spent a day and a half doing what we could to get this and that and there. So we finally get to the customs thing, and things are going well. And then someone takes us into the back room. And then one Japanese official looks at my son, and then he looks at me, then he looks at my son, and he takes his finger, and he says, "You will not leave Japan." And then a nice guy came, and we ended up leaving. But, okay, so, when an official that holds the powers that can hurt you or harm you is angry at you, what do you do? And that's their situation. All of a sudden, this guy that they're hoping that will be the salvation of their family is now angry at them. Where do you come from? From the land of Canaan, they replied, to buy food. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Then he remembered his dreams about them. Okay, so Joseph really could go two ways. He could go with love. These are my brothers. I've missed them. Or he could go the other way and retaliate for what they did. So he remembered his dreams about them and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see where our land is unprotected." So apparently he's going with the hurt. I'm going to pay you back. Verse 10. "No, my lord," they answered, "your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. Your servants are honest men, not spies." Now, is that true? No, they lied. They sold their brother into slavery, and then they went home and lied to their father about it. So they're not exactly honest. Verse 12, and Joseph knows this, right? "No," he said to them, "you have come to see where our land is unprotected." But they replied, "Your servants were 12 brothers, the sons of one man who lives in the land of Canaan. The youngest is now with our father, and one is no more." And Joseph said to them, "It is as I told you, you are spies, and this is how you will be tested. As surely as Pharaoh lives, you will not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of your number to get your brother. The rest of you will be kept in prison so that your words may be tested to see if you're telling the truth. If you are not, then as surely as Pharaoh lives, you are spies." So his initial reaction is, you guys are going to pay. You threw me in a pit many years ago, and you sold me into slavery. Guess what? I'm going to put you in a pit and see how you feel. Get even. That's probably the initial reaction when you're hurt. When you're hurt, you build a wall. You build a separation from that hurt, and you leave it. but then circumstances in your life bring the whole thing back, and the positive thing that might happen is reconciliation. But initially, what people want to do is retaliation. And he put them all in custody for 3 days, and we'll come back to that. On the third day, Joseph said to them, "Do this, and you will live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers..." Now, how many did he throw into prison? He threw all of them. But now his heart is already softening a little bit. "If you're honest men, let one of your brothers stay here in prison while the rest of you go and take grain back to your starving households." Okay, do you see a little crack in the wall here a little bit? The wall is crumbling just a little bit. He's concerned about his brother back home, his father starving, all of that. He's going to have just one of them stay. It's interesting that so Joseph is kind of angry. He's sort of dealing with his anger. And in life, we often get angry at people. And a lot of times we're angry at people because we're hurt. And the hurt often is because there was love. So first there has to be some kind of love. There has to be some kind of connection. And then you get betrayed, or that love thing is compromised somehow, and so you get hurt. You don't get hurt by people that don't love you. People that don't love you, it's like, well, whatever, I don't care. It's the people that you love, that you have a connection, those are the people that can betray you. If you have someone you don't care about and they betray you, it's like, well, whatever. So it starts with love. Love gets hurt, and then the hurt translates into anger. So if you are angry at stuff, if you find yourself angry at your spouse, you find yourself angry at your kids all the time, you find yourself angry at the people at work, you just got to backtrack. Okay, where did I get hurt? And why do I care? What is the loving connection that we're dealing with? And then maybe you can figure out how to get back to the love part. So that's what's happening to Joseph. He's angry. He's, letting that go. But he's angry because he was hurt. He's hurt because his family had abandoned him. And there's some kind of love connection that he had and probably still wants. Verse 20. "But you must bring your youngest brother to me, so that your words may be verified and that you may not die." This they proceeded to do. Then they said to one another, Surely we are being punished because of our brother." They're talking about Joseph. "We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, and we would not listen." Now, this is really the first little opening into how Joseph may have felt. I mean, in the previous chapters, it just says, the brothers threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery, and we don't really get the play-by-play. We don't get how he felt about it. But here, it looks like Joseph pleaded for his life, and they didn't listen. So, you get a little picture of the hurt that Joseph endured. Where am I? "Surely we're being punished for our brother. We saw how distressed he was, and he pleaded with us for his life, but we would not listen. That's why his distress has come on us." Reuben replied, "Didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy?" He was against this whole thing in the beginning, they first wanted to kill Joseph, and Reuben was like, "We can't kill our own brother." "But you wouldn't listen. Now we must give an accounting for his blood." Verse 23, "They did not recognize that Joseph could understand them, since he was using an interpreter." So Joseph obviously looks like an Egyptian, dressing like an Egyptian, speaking the Egyptian language, and even using an interpreter to talk to his brothers. He's keeping up the ruse. They don't know it's him. Then verse 24, very interesting little phrase. "He turned from them and began to weep." That's interesting. The whole crying thing in the Bible, it's very rare. Very rare. It's very seldom do you have anything in the Bible where someone is crying. And here Joseph is, he at this point in the whole conversation has to excuse himself, and he weeps. And so what's the significance of that? I remember years ago, it was maybe 12 years after I was in the ministry, and I came back to Grand Rapids. I was in Vancouver at that time. Came back to Grand Rapids for Synod. I was at Synod, and I met an old classmate from seminary there. I hadn't seen him in 12 years. And so I asked him stuff like, what's the most significant book you've read in the last 10 years or whatever. And he mentioned some book. I don't remember what it was. And then I said, well, why? What was the point? Or what point did you get out of it or whatever? And he said this. And I don't know if he came up with it or the book came up with it, but I've never forgotten it. He said the thing that he learned is that the things in life that choke you up are the things in life that you've covered, or that you have a wall. There's a hurt that you've sort of have not totally dealt with. And he said, I don't know if it was the book or him or whatever, but he said the way to figure that out is when you're watching movies. You're watching movies, and at what point in what movie do you get sort of choked up, right? Everyone gets choked up at some point, and you look at your spouse and she's like laughing or yawning, and you're like, almost bawling your eyes out, and so you got to just turn away a little bit, and it's embarrassing and all that. That's why theaters are dark, so you can just do that. And so if you think about movies, what scenes sort of get to you? So for example, if you have sort of a mother-daughter strained relationship, or if you never felt your mother really loved you, supported you, or something like that, then when you watch Dumbo, right, and the scene where the mother has been put into this cage thing, and then Dumbo somehow goes there, and the trunk of the mother is going out the window, and the trunk of little Dumbo, and they're doing this sort of thing, and there's some sad music going on, and if you have that issue, you're like bawling your eyes out because of Dumbo, right? And the other guy's like, it's just an animated, goofy film. It does, it means nothing. It doesn't touch me at all. Or I know some have issues with Bambi's mother getting shot by a hunter. I guess there's that scene, and people cry about that. And the hunting guy is like, well, doe venison is really good. I mean, so. One is like callous, the other is like bawling their eyes out, but it's because of your different relationships. For me, I was reading The Lord of the Rings for the first time. This was when I was in seminary, and I got to the part where Frodo died. I woke my wife up. I was in bed reading, and I woke her up, and I said, Frodo died. I can't believe it. After all this, So I don't know what that means about me, but my wife is like, okay, thanks for waking me up. But others will watch a movie where someone is dying, and it's a cancer or something. Back in the day, there was a movie called Brian's Song. It was about a football player, and it's just, if you haven't watched it, it's just very touching. And if those kind of things grab hold of you, the loss, so you've experienced loss, and then when you see loss, or you see a movie that has that in it, it chokes you up. Or some have sort of the father-son issue. One of the neatest books I ever read on that whole thing is Death of a Salesman. It's just a short little thing. If you have a strained relationship with your father or those kinds of things, then you will bawl like a baby as you watch or as you read this book. Or for some of you, Star Wars, when Luke Skywalker met his father, Darth Vader, and Darth takes off his helmet, and he's just this guy, and it's sad, and, the whole thing. And, you start bawling over Star Wars. So, or, it's not just negative stuff. It can be, what's that one movie with Denzel Washington, Titans? Remember the Titans? Football thing, underdog, are they going to make it? I don't know, and then they win. And for some people, it's just when something good, really cool happens, some miracle, something that's against all odds, because that's never happened to them. They want to see, something good happen. I want to believe in God, but I never see God. I never see the miracle. I want to see the miracle. And it's a need. And so when they see it in this movie, it's like movies sort of get under the wall. Okay? See, we get hurt by these things, and I made a list of things. There's a feeling of being abandoned by people that care about us or are supposed to care about us, or a sense of betrayal, when people that are close to us betray us, or if you've been abused by people who should be loving you and caring for you, or you get disillusioned because you have high hopes about people and then they let you down, and these were people you respected, and then they dropped the ball in a big way. And so you have all these feelings, and they're hurtful feelings, and it hurts to hang on to them, so we wall it off. It's like, when you get cut, all the body's defenses come and say, hey, we got to do something here. We got to stop this. And you get this scab to cover up this wound, so it sort of protects you. And that's what we do in life. When we get hurt, we build some kind of a wall, and now we can deal with it. We don't want to think about it. That's what Joseph is doing, right? He's a success. He could have gone home. He could have sent someone home. He could have sent one of his minions. Hey, go over to Canaan. Check out these things. Report back to me. But he doesn't at all. He ignores the whole thing. He's speaking Egyptian, dressing Egyptian. He's going Egyptian. It's like, you know what? I'm going to just wall off the rest of that whole old world. I'm going to let that go. I don't want to. I've dealt with it. I've succeeded. I don't want to have to deal with that. And that's what we do in our lives. We have our hurts and so on, and it's kind of like a beach ball. You ever try to take a big beach ball and try to hold it underwater? You can do it, but it's like, and then how long can you do it? Eventually, you lose something, or a wave comes by, and up comes the beach ball. And that's what happens with our hurts. We try to keep them down. We try to hold them, try to control it. But then something happens. Life gets out of kilter, and all of a sudden it pops up in your life. So Joseph is just enjoying himself, running things, doing things, and all of a sudden his own brothers end up in front of him. Didn't count on that, didn't foresee that, didn't think about that. And now he has to deal with all these things. And this author, or this friend of mine, whoever came up with it, said, see, movies sort of, you're relaxed, you're watching a movie, you're not thinking about your life. It's like, whatever, I'm escaping. And it's like you're not ready. Your defenses are down. And the movie sneaks under the wall, and all of a sudden it grabs hold of you before it's too late. So if you want to figure out what you're dealing with, then the next movie you watch where you're getting choked up, write that down. Why in the world is this Disney movie about a fish who can't find his home making me bawl so much? Just write it down and then try to figure out where that comes from. All right. So he turned away from them and began to weep. But then came back and spoke to them again. He had Simeon taken from them and bound before their eyes. Okay, so he's still angry about it. He's trying to deal with all his feelings, and his first reaction is to punish. That's what we do. We retaliate first, especially in a close relationship. It's interesting. I found that out counseling early on in my career. I was meeting with Bill and his wife, and they were fighting, and Bill was done. He was like, I don't want to, in the counseling session, he would actually have his chair sit kind of away from us. His shoulder was here, and we were there. And the wife was like pleading with him, come on, let's work on this. Let's at least try. She was pleading, she was bargaining, she was doing whatever she could. And, I was sort of with her. Come on, Bill, just turn your chair. Let's give this a go. Let's try. God, this commitment. All that we pulled out, all the stops that we could. Okay? For 3 weeks. And Bill's just, he's one of these silent kind of guys. And he just wouldn't give anything. For 3 weeks, we're pleading and pushing and shoving and using all our tricks in the bag to get him to try. Fourth week, he literally turned his chair towards us. He turned his chair towards us, and he started saying, okay. And we were starting to talk, and he was starting to say, maybe this is what God wants. It was like positive. I was like, yeah, it's like I couldn't believe it. 3 weeks, it was like nothing. He was a stone, a stone, a stone. And I thought he was just going to stay a stone, but he finally turned around. And when he turned around, you know what his wife did? Just smacked him. I mean, just unloaded. I mean, the 16-inch guns of the Missouri were just boom, 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 boom. It looked like Platoon, you know, that movie where the guys just, I mean, Bill was just taking one shot after another. And I'm like, what are you doing? It took us 3 weeks to get him to turn his chair around, and now you're going to shoot him to death. Well, of course, that didn't go well. They didn't show up again. Divorce, end of story, end of game. And I'm like, what the world just happened here? So finally, I figured out that this is kind of how it goes. You know, when a guy's got his back turned to somebody, there's no sense shooting him. He's already walking out the door. So she's pleading with him and talking to him and, you know, doing whatever she can to get him to turn around. But the minute he turned around, well, now I got someone to shoot. I got a lot of anger. I got a lot of frustration. And you're going to pay. I've been paying for the last 3 weeks. It's your turn. So that's what people do. There's a hurt. They don't want to deal with it. They're running away. And finally, when you get them to try to deal with it, the first response is, I got to shoot somebody. I've got a lot of anger. I got to unload something. So if that happens in your life, that's kind of a normal thing. You know, the first exchange between two people that have a wall is going to be a little violent. It's going to have a lot of hurt and pain, and it all has to come out. So that Joseph is angry, and he's, but you can tell he's like conflicted. Because here in the next thing, Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, put each man's silver back in the bag, and to give them provisions for their journey. You know, I care about these people. After this was done for them, they loaded their grain and on their donkeys and left. At the place where they stopped for the night, one of them opened the sack to get feed for his donkey, and he saw his silver in the mouth of his sack. My silver has been returned. He said to his brothers, here it is in my sack. Their hearts sank. I love that. And they turned to each other, trembling, and said, what is this that God has done to us? Last week I was in Spring Lake. I had to go for something, and Spring Lake Road is a winding road, and it's 55, then it's 45, then it's 25, then it's 45, then it's 55. Anyway, I was driving down this road. All of a sudden, in my rear view mirror, there's the little red and blue lights going ding, 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 ding. Now, when you first see those lights in the rear view mirror, what do you feel? It's like your heart sinks. It's like, I mean, it's only a $100 problem or $50 problem, right? Generally. That's all it is. And how many times have I speeded and not gotten caught? You know, once a year, you should really pay your $100. You should just go to the police station once a year and just pay. Here's my $100. Let's call it good. Let's be done. So it's not like the end of the world, but your heart does a little thing, right? It's like your heart actually goes up, right? You know, my rate goes 100, I'm beating 120 because I got caught. And he comes up, and he was the nicest can be. And he talked to me, and the first thing he said was, are you in a hurry today? I said, no. Why were you speeding? You know, you just can't really lie to a policeman. You know, you could give excuses, but I said, I have no idea. I should have said, if I were to be totally honest, this is just how I drive. You should probably give me a ticket. I probably deserve it. But then I said, well, this Spring Lake Road, I'm not from Grand Haven. It's, it keeps changing and curving. I don't know what I'm doing. It wasn't a very good defense, probably. But he went back, and they check, and they see that you haven't had a ticket in 30 years. Then they come back and say, Mr. Elzinga, just drive safely, and I'll give you a warning. But it's interesting how your heart, so that's what I picture here. They're like, first of all, they're in trouble already. They have one of their brothers. How's this going to work? and then they have the money in the sack. It's like, oh. And I like how they blame the Lord. What is this that God has done for us? But when things happen in our lives that we have no control over, I think that's the natural tendency. Who else is there to blame? These things happen, and I can't point to any specific person that did it. I'm going to blame the Lord. Verse 29, when they came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened. They said, the man who was Lord over the land spoke harshly to us, and he treated us as though we were spying on the land. But we said to them, we are honest men. Here it is again. Okay? They're talking to their father whom they had deceived. And by the way, their father had deceived his father, right? Jacob had deceived his own father, Isaac. We are honest men. We are not spies. We were 12 brothers, sons of one father. One is no more. The youngest is now with our father in Canaan. The man who is Lord over us said to us, this is how I will know whether you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers here with me. Take food for your starving households and go. But bring your youngest brother to me, and I will know that you are not spies but honest men. Then I will give your brother back to you, and you can trade in the land. As they were emptying their sacks, there in each man's sack was a pouch of silver. And when they and their father saw the money pouches, they were frightened. Then their father Jacob said to them, so Jacob was at the beginning, and what does he say? How come you guys are just standing around? We're starving to death. There's food. Why don't you go to Egypt? Come on, do something. And now he shows up at the end of the story. Their father Jacob said to them, you've deprived me of my children. Joseph is no more. Simeon is no more. And now you want to take Benjamin. Everything is against me. Okay, what's the picture of Jacob that you're getting here? He's blaming everybody for the problem, blaming the situation on others. He's got the victim mentality. Everything is against me. How can I go on? And I think this happens with people that have control issues. Jacob has always been a control person. Okay? He was back when he was in the womb. There were twins in the womb, and they're fighting as to who's going to go out first. And Esau gets out first, and when Jacob comes out, he's got a hold of his heel. In the womb. He's trying to pull him back. No, I'm going to be the one that's first. And then he ends up deceiving his father to get the birthright. He was always conniving. The word Jacob means either deceiver or overreacher. He's always trying to make it happen on his own. Control. And when things don't go well, he's upset. That happens with control people and idealistic people. People who have in their minds, this is how it ought to go. And if it doesn't go this way, then, either someone's to blame or, the fates of the world or God himself is somehow against me. Then Reuben said to his father, you may put both of my sons to death if I do not bring him, your son Benjamin, back to you. Entrust him to my care, and I will bring him back. This, by the way, is finally one of the 10 sons stepping up and leading. They've been, sitting in the background all the time, but here's one that steps up. Verse 38, but Jacob said, my son will not go down there with you. His brother is dead. He's the only one left. If harm comes to him on the journey you are taking, you will bring my gray head down to the grave in sorrow. So what's his response? It's no response. How are we going to do this? We're going to leave our brother there? We're going to end up starving to death? What are we going to do here? So dad sort of just puts his head in the sand. And notice what he says. He says, I lost one of my sons, and I only have one left. And what does that say about the other 10? What does it say about the 10? Again, that sense that they don't count, they don't matter, they can't figure things out, they don't do things right. So then the story ends. Now, the problem with the Joseph story, it's a long story, covers many chapters, and to get the whole gist, you have to look at all the chapters, but we're going one chapter a week. So what does this chapter have to say about anything? I think there's 3 characters in this story. One is Jacob, one is Joseph, and the other are the 10 brothers who go down to Egypt. And if you look at each one of them, they all have a hurt that they're covering up, that they have a wall that they've sort of built around their hurt. The 10 brothers, they've sort of not been loved all their lives. They've always had this second-class status because Jacob loved his one wife that had Joseph and Benjamin, and the other ones, were weird circumstances. And he's always given the vibe that the 10 don't matter, that he doesn't believe in them. They can't figure things out. Everything they do is wrong. So they have this hurt because they've been micromanaged. They've been not allowed to become the people that they could be. So they've been always sort of in the shadow of their father. So they're dealing with that, trying to figure out how to be who they are, the timid people that they are. Then there's Joseph, who's the opposite. He's a wild success, but he's in part a success because he got abandoned. He got out from the controlling father, but he has all these abandonment issues and being betrayed by his own brothers. So, yeah, he's a success, but part of the reason why he is a success is that whole hurt. And maybe he's trying to prove himself to the whole world. I'm not a nobody. I'm not a person that belongs in the pit. I am somebody who should be standing on top of the mountain. So maybe even his insecurity was why he succeeded so much. We don't know. And then Jacob. Jacob, he was always, his whole life story is an insecure guy, always trying to manipulate things to make things go his way. He makes some soup. His brother comes in. He's starving. He makes a deal. Hey, give me your birthright and I'll sell you some soup. He's always conniving with his uncle. His uncle took advantage of him, so Jacob takes advantage of his uncle. Always looking for the angle, always trying to make it somehow happen, always trying to control the situation. God came to him several times and said, "You're my man. We're going to make this happen. You're going to be blessed, that my plan is going to come through you and your line. Don't worry about it." But he always felt like he had to take things into his own hands. So all three are sort of struggling with this thing. And I think it's interesting because maybe all of us can relate to at least one of them. Maybe some of you are like the 10 brothers and you're sort of insecure about things. You have a hard time stepping out, solving problems, leading, taking charge, because you're afraid that if you did, you're just going to do it wrong. And the people that are large and in charge are just going to criticize you. They're going to complain. And you have this sense that you can't do anything right and that you might as well just sit back and wait to be told what to do and, just let the people large and in charge be large and in charge. And so maybe that's how you struggle with life. And you haven't really found who you are. You haven't found your voice because you timidly let everyone else do all the talking and all the deciding. Or maybe you're like Joseph. You're a wild success. You've been succeeding all your life, but part of that success is coming because you're still trying to prove yourself to your father that didn't love you or didn't give you attention, or your mother or somebody or something, or a classmate that said that you're no good or that you'll never measure up, or you were always small, or you weren't good at sports, or whatever it was, and you're going to prove yourself to the world. And so that has been the thing that has been driving you all your life. Or maybe you're like a Jacob type. Nothing good is going to happen to you unless you somehow figure it out, unless you somehow make it happen. It's hard for you to let other people do anything because they don't do it right. You are in charge, you're in control, and everyone around you is incompetent, and you're overwhelmed with everything on your plate because everything is up to you. No one can do it but you. And you're tired, and you just wish someone would do something. But it's that dilemma problem that you have. So maybe you can relate to one of these things. Now, what's the solution? We don't have the solution in this chapter, but I think there is a little hint of the solution in this chapter. If you go back to, let's see, where is it? It's this business of the 3 days, verse 17. He put them in custody for 3 days. on the third day, Joseph said to them, okay, we bumped into this before. Remember the baker had a dream, and then 3 days later he was going to be taken out of prison, and then the cupbearer had a dream. 3 days later he's going to be taken out of prison. So we talked about how that 3 days shows up. Jonah was in the belly of the whale for 3 days. Jesus was in the tomb for 3 days. So here is this 3-day thing again. 3 days. 3 days of trouble. I think it's bringing us back to Jesus, that Jesus keeps showing up in this book of Genesis. I think it's relating to Jesus, and how is that going to go? Jesus was 3 days in the tomb, and he took with him the sin of the world. The sin of the world died so that it could be raised again. Now here on the third day, it says that he took them out of the prison, and then the next little vignette happens, and I think those two are separate. So we have the 3 days of trouble, and then they get taken out of, and I think that's a picture of Jesus. He's going to be in the tomb, pay for our sins, so we can rise up to a new life again. But also, I think in the next part, it says, what does it say? Where am I? Okay, the third day, Joseph said to them, do this and you will live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers stay here in prison, while the rest of you go and take grain back for your starving household. So we have two little pictures. One is 3 days in the tomb, and then sort of a picture of the resurrection, but then also the one being a substitute for the others, and that's what Jesus did on the cross. So we have these hurts and these situations, and remember I said it's because you have love, and then love goes bad and gets hurt, and then it leads to anger. And now we're kind of going the other way. I've got my anger, I throw that out, and that leads to this problem of the wall and why I'm my hurt, and I have to deal with that hurt so that I can get back to the love. So the first thing to understand from this story is that Jesus understands exactly how you feel. Okay, he went through the 3 days himself. He was put in a pit or in a prison, and he understands all those things that I mentioned. Abandoned. He was abandoned by his closest friends. Betrayed. Judas, his disciple, betrayed him. Abused. The Roman soldiers beat him and whipped him. Disillusioned. It says that they all ran. All his disciples ran and when he was on the cross. So he knows exactly how you feel when you're going through these things and you're trying to face these walls, and you need the courage to do that. The last thing I want to say is, in some ways this is kind of a negative sermon because it's dealing with your walls and the things that have hurt, and you've developed these walls, and who wants to go look at these things? Who wants to look at the stuff of why I am what I am? You know what? I am who I am. That's what it is. I'm just going to live with it. You know, I'm Joseph. I'm in Egypt. I'm in charge. Forget my family. You know, that's kind of the mentality. Jacob, he's going to be who he is. He's been that way all his life. He's not going to change. You know, we should just let it go. The sons, you know, they're going to be who they are. Let's just let it go. It's a lot of work to deal with all these problems, and so a lot of times we just don't want to deal with it. But I think the positive thing about this whole thing is that look at all the negative stuff in this family. You know, Jacob, the father, controlling guy, trying to always lie and cheat his way to things. Okay, he's the patriarch. Got the 10 sons, no motivation. No stepping out there and doing things. Joseph hiding his head. You got all these problems and issues in this family, and yet God uses it. So in some ways, this is a positive thing because God can use all the mess that you've gone through and the walls that you developed and the hurt that you experienced as a kid, maybe from your parents, maybe I don't know where you experienced the hurt, but it's not like it's wasted. See, a lot of people don't want to deal with their stuff because then it makes it seem like, you know, well, then I've been wallowing in this stuff for half my lifetime, and I've wasted. No, you haven't wasted anything. God is using every square inch of Joseph's life. the time he's in the pit, time he's in the prison. All the things that are going on, all the negative things that are happening in your life, God is going to use. Now, does he want you to stay there? Is it in prison, wallowing, trying to deal with your walls and all that stuff? No. God is in a process of making you into the person that he wants you to be and to unfold the plan that he has for your life. And going through these valleys up and down, that's all part of it. And nothing of it is wasted. If you spent 10 years and you look at it and go, oh, man, what a waste. I could have. Well, God wanted, you needed to go through that. And you are who you are because of some of those negative things. So don't be afraid to embrace the negative stuff in your past. And here's one way to do it. It's just a simple little thing. But let's say you were abused as a kid from your parent. It's horrible. Who wants to go back and relive that? Go back, relive it, but this time take Jesus with you. Take him with you, literally. Just picture him sitting there. Go through the scene and have him sitting there, understanding, supporting you, giving you strength, and giving you new insight as to what's going on and what you could be, even though you've gone through some of those things. Take him with you. I've seen it in counseling. It's amazing. Jesus with you can make all the difference. And who is Jesus? Jesus is the Son of God, but he's also in his people. So take God's people. Share your story. Talk to someone that you trust, that cares about you, that you can trust with your story. And I guarantee you, some of those walls will start coming down. All right, well, that's enough work for today. Next week, Genesis 43. Let's pray together. Lord, I know some are reacting to this whole sermon with, okay, I don't want to do that. I am who I am. I got my things. I got my ups and downs, and I've been this way for so long. Let's just leave it and move on from here. Others, some things have come up, and the beach ball is hard to hold underwater, and and maybe it's popping up a little bit, and now the fear, what's going to happen? What am I going to do? Lord, you're in charge of all these things, all our ups, all our downs, the negatives, the things that have happened, the times when we felt abandoned, alone, betrayed. You were there, and you're watching over us, and you can take those things and make us into the kind of people that you want us to be for the glory of your kingdom and your purpose and your task. All these things can be used. So help us, Lord. Give us the courage to face these things so we can be the people that you want us to be. And help us to rely. It's not going to happen on our own. We're going to need the people of God in our lives. We're going to need good, close friends. And we're going to need the strength that you provide through your Spirit. We're being refined as though by fire. And sometimes the fire hurts. But the ultimate goal is your glory and your kingdom. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. This time we're going to have the offering. If you're new visiting with us, we have a little slip. You can put that in the offering plate as it goes around. That just lets us know who you are, and we want to welcome you. And why don't we sing our closing song as we do that? So why don't we stand and sing?
James 1, 2 through 4.
Okay.
Comes your way, let it be an opportunity for joy, for joy.
Amen. Will you join us for a little fellowship through the double doors? If you need prayer, please come to the front. And have a blessed, great, wonderful week.
2, 3, 4.